when they're like, yeah, not tonight. So speak assertively. Don't not do that. Don't not ask because you might be told no, but be willing to also listen empathically.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right, so arousal. Arousal is the next phase that comes around. And this is one of those places that the research has really been interesting. Across the board, what we're finding today, because women, the money that has been involved in women and desire issues, the low desire women, to create that in her through either medication, some kind of fabrication, some kind of plants, is billions of dollars. And there is nothing that creates female desire in the market. There's no Viagra for it. It's amazing the money that's been put into that kind of research, and there's zero basic response to that. And the reason that is because we are so variable. We have a lot of different pieces to us. We have the hormones, we have the mood, we have the temperature of the room, we have the kids outside the room, we have all of these pieces. But so arousal gets affected quite a bit. But one of the things that we have found is that women, it's not so much that they are low desire, we're changing that term to yet slow desire. It just takes a little bit longer to come around. So by the time you've got initiation, you've got all that initial part started, you are coming around to having some physical arousal. Most women, unlike most men, don't know when they're aroused. Men, do you know when you're aroused? I mean, it's pretty clear, right? It's a fact. For women, not so much. And so we are very, we don't touch our bodies all the time. And so there's this distancing, although we do a lot with our own body. We don't study it. It's kind of, don't touch yourself, don't do those things, don't. And unless you know what's happening, you're probably not going to know that there's arousal going on. So there's this next phase. So the reality is if you can stay in it a little bit, about a few minutes in, you might be going, okay, not too bad. Yeah. Remember when you ever go to the refrigerator and you're standing in front of the refrigerator and you're going, oh yeah, I am hungry. That's kind of what we're talking about. Those moments where you just really weren't paying attention to yourself, because women, we pay attention to ourselves so much, right? Yes. That we aren't really listening to ourselves, so we don't even know when we're hungry. We don't know when we're aroused. We don't know those things. And so it really does take a little bit of that initiating, that foreplay, that love play, whatever you want to call it. I like that terminology better. To get some juices flowing, literally, and to get to that point where arousal starts to happen. That's why you don't, when your husband says, at 3:30, hey, you want to have sex tonight? Maybe. It's all, okay. I'll move it up here to the top of the list somewhere. Maybe I could, maybe. And that's really because there's not the initial desire all the time. But this is a new kind of piece to this whole environment. So if you can just start the process, be a part of the process. The second one is, I think, that we can add this erotica kind of process to it. Arousal is that building up of the it's a sexual desire. Remember, it's God. So if it's in God's parameters, it's allowable. As there's crickets. That's the beauty of it. When I say the word erotica, you just want to take the wind out of a sail. Because again, it's like I said this earlier, we have lost our hold on that word. It's about creating arousal and desire. There's the playful vulnerability. I really love that piece to this because we have lost probably a good portion of that. The fun part of sex, you've heard the terms duty or pity sex. Anybody heard those terms? Or maybe you've had that kind of sex, I don't know. Really not fun for anybody involved. In terms of sex therapy, we tell them to stop that altogether, because all we're doing is really rewriting and reinforcing some really negative interaction. But with the idea that we're going to try to rewrite the script, we're going to try to rewrite that whole process and to bring some playfulness back into it, so that the goal isn't the orgasm. It's not that we all have, you know, our orgasms, but that we actually enjoy being together in whatever capacity today brings. And so it takes that expectation, that performance out of it. Mutual exploration. What can be said about that? Your body and your partner need to meet each other. It's okay. Again, it's one of those things that somebody has told us, don't do that, don't let somebody else touch you, don't. And so when you get married, okay, now they can touch you. Okay? How do we do that? We talk through it. Talk about what you like, what you don't like, where you like, because now you have the vocabulary to do that, right? And so that's why we introduce that first, so that when you're in this process, that you can actually talk about what you like and don't like, and what is arousing and what isn't. I think it's that part of this process too, that it just allows the passion to build. It's staying in the moment. We get so distracted, and this is where you have to coach your mate through this. Your partner might be going off into some, you know, where are the kids? Where's the dog? Did you lock that door? Did you? Come back here. Yes, all that's taken care of. Let's just settle in for right here and right now, and calm that moment down and bring it back to where you are, so that the arousal can happen. Arousal is not something you can force. You can't say, I'm going to get aroused. It's totally your body's decision. But certain things trigger that. And I think it's really interesting that the new research is also saying that men and women are both visually stimulated, but in different ways. You vacuuming, for some women, is incredibly romantic and incredibly stimulating. If that is your wife's love language, buy a new vacuum cleaner and go to town. All right? It's going to work well for you. Maybe there are other things. I hear women say this all the time. When my husband steps in with the kids and is playing with them and is invested in is really involved with them, it's so sexy. If that's what turns you on, go for it. But your partner needs to know that. Now, don't go messing with your kids just because it's going to be sex anyway. Not a good idea. But it's the idea that I'm investing in this, I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you. Because arousal is different for males than it is for women. And so this whole part can be where it all goes out the window, and or can really go and get to the fun part.
Yeah, and I think that's the big lie, right? Like every movie scene you see is this equal mutual level of arousal, right? I'm as excited as you are in the same time frame, in the same time span as you are.
Right.
And every time you want it, I want it equally as much.
Right.
And that really sets you up for failure, because as a woman, I would wonder, well, what's wrong with me that I'm not as excited as him, or I don't get excited as fast as him. There must be something wrong with me.
Right.
And as a man, I think we take it very personal, like, well, why isn't she as excited as me? Like, does she not love me? Does she not think I'm sexually attractive? Does she not enjoy sex with me? Because if she did, wouldn't she be excited also? And so there's this lie that has kind of permeated our culture that allows for this dissonance and allows for us to almost deny the arousal, because I'll never get as aroused as fast as him anyway, so why even try?
Right.
Or she'll never get aroused anyway, so why even try to pursue her or seduce her in that kind of way, because it all feels pointless.
Or the other extreme, where you're trying harder and you're demanding and trying to badger and do all those things, where it's, you better do this because we need to have sex. That, I think those two extremes get to be part of that playing that out. And so I think a lot of that is, and we're going to talk about that in the next one too, is that women don't allow themselves pleasure. It's okay, women, for us to feel sexual pleasure, for you to be in the moment with that, and just to surrender to it. It actually can happen. Now, again, there are times and there are situations and people that, somebody's damaged that. Somebody's wounded you. And they have robbed you of that. And I get that. And my suggestion is get some help for that. We deal with those issues in therapy all the time. You are not alone. But go ahead and do that. So for yourself, not necessarily so you have better sex even, although I think that can happen, but that you do that for yourself to live in the freedom of not having to live under that shadow or to have that invade your private time with your spouse. Because it does happen. And so I think all of those things work together to rob us of the arousal process. Just enjoy the moment. It doesn't necessarily have to end in intercourse. It just has to let yourself be in the moment with it, to be aware of it. It's a mental process. Ladies, you know this is true. I can speak from that side of it in the sense of being distracted and being, losing your focus. So there's distraction, there's distortion, there's discomfort that happens. And those are the things that derail us in our sexuality and the arousal feature. All right, they're distraction, discomfort, and distortion. Sometimes if it's not comfortable, that goes back to the sexual language we were talking about before. Tell your partner, try it differently. Give them instruction, coach them through. It's your body. They don't know how hard is hard. They don't know how soft is soft. They don't know. You are your best ally. There is nothing wrong with you being responsible for your own arousal, male and or female. Okay? That is the absolute truth. You are responsible for your own sexual arousal. Somebody gives that to you. So keep that in mind. And the other part of that is this new thing too, is this, sometimes we have this experience called spectating, where we have almost like an out-of-body experience where you're just almost not there, you're kind of dissociating from the moment. And that usually begins to happen right around here. And it's a way as women, I think, especially if we've been abused, that's part of it. But also I think it's a way for us in our busy minds to just deal with this. And then we start evaluating ourselves. Am I doing it right? Wait, it's not happening. What's wrong with me? Does he like me? Does he love me? Last week we had a fight. And then, so, I'm off on that trail. And I can't even be in the moment. I got to pull all that back in and be in the moment. What's happening right now in my body? What does that feel like? Is it good? Would it be better over here, over there? Should we do this? And be able to communicate that in the moment. So let's go on to the apex. Apex orgasm. We didn't put that word I didn't put that on my sex word list.
No.
Orgasm is orgasm. The big O, people will talk about the big O. Well, we're redefining the big O to be oneness. So orgasm is not the goal.
What?
Yes, I know. If you go into sex with, okay, let's get her done, let's make it happen. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Number one, deflator of the process here, pressure, pressure, pressure. Expectation, this needs to happen. And if this doesn't happen, failure. Alert, alarm, bad us, whatever. Here's another truth, not every erection has to be used. As women, a lot of times, I think a lot of women feel like, oh, he's got an erection, we're going to have to finish this out. Right? You're laughing because you know it's true. And you don't. Now, it's also, you don't use it as a weapon either. Like, oh, sorry.
The erection or the...
Either one.
Oh.
Either one.
So I'll make sure I understand clearly.
Yeah, either one. But the fact of it is that you don't have to use every guys have erections all the time. They have one like every 45 minutes while they're sleeping. They don't even know it. That's why you wake up with one. I know, it's hard to believe. It's like, really? Come on. But yes, the body is constantly changing and constantly doing that process. It's a full physical, chemical response. It's amazing. But it also doesn't mean that you have to have sex right then and there. Right? There is some flexibility to that. Every word you
I
say.
know, I'm like to the erection. I just want to keep asking that.
It gets tainted.
Not really, Carol.
Yeah. The other side of that, I think, is down in this time is focusing on the pleasure and staying in the moment. I can't say that enough, because what happens is, again, that distraction thing comes in and it kills everything. And so then we have to start over again. Somewhat. But you can't force this to happen. And here's the other part of that. Ladies, this is true, and men, this is true too. Your husband or partner does not give you an orgasm. That's not how it works. Your body decides whether you have one. Okay? A lot of women have never had one. I had a client a couple of years ago, and we always do a very extensive sex history. And she said, I asked her, if she had an orgasm. She said, I don't know. Well, you've been married 7 years, and so I figure by now you probably would know if you had one. It's something you do remember. But here's the thing about 30% of women, 10% of all women have no orgasm ever. 30% of women have difficulty with it. That's a lot of women not having orgasm. 60 to 75% of women have orgasm from mutual or manual stimulation. That leaves only about 25 to 30% that have orgasm during intercourse itself. It is actually quite rare for women to have an orgasm while you're doing intercourse. It's just part of the physiology of it. We used to think there was a vaginal and a clitoral orgasm, and now we know that they're probably both the same, just different nerve endings that go to different places. The vaginal area and the vulva and all of that has got hundreds of nerve endings that go to it. So also that leads to a lot of pain, leads to a lot of weird sensations and feelings, and some really good ones. And the problem becomes trying to figure out which one that is. And it's really difficult to do so. Women's pain issues are huge. Research right now, they're looking into surgeries and all kinds of medications because the pain issue is so prevalent. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Paying attention. Paying attention to your body, paying attention to your spouse's body, but that you are responsible for your sexual response. Your spouse is even as the best of lover, I'm sure they're very good at it, but your body decides what your body's going to do. So keep that in mind as you own that. That's why your mental process is so very important. A man named Proust, he's a author. He said, "It's our imagination that is responsible for love, not the other person." The power of your mind in the process is very, very powerful. It's how you see it. Remember we talked about a minute ago about different eyes, seeing it with different eyes. There's a lot of, I think, the feeling of responsibility in this. And if you can just take this hyper goal of having an orgasm and ejaculation, that it must happen, that if you can take that off the table and enjoy the moment, it doesn't have to happen every time. I think you'll find that there'll be much more pleasure in these two, especially these two phases of the sex and lovemaking cycle.
Yeah, so it sounds like too that you're saying that you can either focus on the pressure or on the pleasure. Right. That your brain can't actually do both at the same time. Right. You almost have to choose. Am I going to focus on the pressure or am I going to focus on the pleasure? Yeah. But simultaneously they can't happen.
Yeah. And we're really finding most of the things that are really actually helping couples is that piece right there of taking the pressure off of both of you. This isn't just a female deal. This is both. If you don't have an erection or you don't have ejaculation and you're like, oh man, failure mode here. What's wrong with me? Something's wrong with me. We're going to talk about erectile dysfunction a little bit at the end. And it's scary.
Well, even further than that, if like you were saying earlier, if I don't give her an orgasm now,
right.
There's that
right.
pressure as a man also. That again, it's my responsibility to make
Right,
that
because
happen.
that plays such a vital part in the arousal process. I didn't say that before. But that your spouse, your husband, really does, the arousal part is very powerful, watching you get aroused.
Yep.
And so, again, you can pressurize that dramatically, and it becomes just this push-pull situation that ends up with nothing.
All right, so the last quadrant, the afterglow. So this is probably the least appreciated part of this circle, right? All the good work, all the hard work was done already, and now we're done, right? We're finished. And so what do we do now? Like, we clean up, we go to bed, I go off to work, whatever it is, whatever the next step is, we're done. And we don't spend enough time here. So much work went into getting here, right? Like, we've been through all of this to get to this place, and yet it's so underappreciated. And so let me encourage you guys to spend a lot of time in this part of your lovemaking cycle, okay? Build in time for the afterglow. You are selling yourself short if you exit it too quickly. Chemically speaking, in your brain, there is a ton of stuff going on that is more powerful than the actual orgasm itself. Orgasm is great. It releases all kinds of serotonin and dopamine, which make you feel good, which relax you, which takes stress away, all these natural endorphins. More importantly, the afterglow, different things are pumping through my body than are pumping through my wife's body. As a male, I have a far higher level of vasopressin, which is this hormone inside of me that makes me just want to stay with you. I just want to be with you. When that is flowing through my blood, when that is coming from my brain into my system, I just want to stay. It bonds us. Women, for you have a much higher level of oxytocin, right? And we hear about that with breastfeeding and stuff like that. It's that bonding, that instant skin-to-skin contact that we make you do when you have babies. But that oxytocin is rich in your body during the afterglow. Orgasm or not. The vasopressin is rich. Orgasm or not. So even if it's what you might call the failed sexual experience because there was an orgasm, something happened, whatever it was, don't pass this up. Don't say, oh, because the third quadrant didn't go with that, we didn't have that apex, that didn't happen.